call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on the 17th of July 2017 at 7 p.m. Roll call. Mr. Miller. Mr. Janik.
Here.
Mr. Van Truen.
Here.
Mr. Dembinski.
Here.
Mr. Goodell.
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here.
And the chair is present. I have letters on file from both Mr. Miller and Mr. Ramsey. Mr. Goodell.
Make motion to excuse Mr. Miller and Mr. Ramsey.
Mr. Winarski.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to excuse Mr. Miller and Mr. Ramsey. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Mr. Miller and Mr. Ramsey are excused. We have one item on the Finance Committee agenda tonight. It is A17-35, Capital Asset Policy, and that was submitted by Auditor Kukuka. Mr. Kukuka, would you care to give us some information on this agenda request?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. What you see before you, our auditors, as they're going through doing our audit this year, they found that maybe what we might want to do is adopt some type of policy that monitors our capital assets, and that's being land and major purchases, nothing like chairs, furniture, or anything like that. And what this policy does, it spells out what will be in the capital asset program versus what doesn't fall under that capital asset. We kind of already do monitor it, but it's not an actual policy that council puts into place to say, here's how you should, monitor all these capital assets that the city does monitor. Capital assets do not have a depreciation. These aren't things that we're depreciating like trucks or lawnmowers or anything like that. These are non-depreciable items.
Okay. What kind of changes are we going to be seeing in terms of the actual budget?
Nothing to the budget. This is just for auditing purposes, and this way everything will be easier for the auditors to be able to go through. And when they say, what are all your capital assets? This policy will spell out. These are all of our capital assets. These are non-capital assets.
Okay, so there aren't going to be any
It's
changes?
mostly bookkeeping for my office. It's nothing that has to do with anything with the budget or financial.
Okay, there's no changes to accounting classifications or anything
No.
like that. Will there be a difference in the dollar amounts in the accounting
No.
classifications?
No.
Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real simply, when you talk about capital assets, you're talking about what land and improvements. Doesn't the county already track that anyway? You just go to their website?
They do, but what the auditors have seen is that many cities have installed a capital asset policy program so that the council is aware of it and that they can also follow it along. So they recommended, hey, why don't you guys adopt this too? Here's a sample ordinance, and that's what we're doing.
All right, so really this just firms up a practice that's
Right.
already in place.
With all the changes that the state has made with auditing and, within the tax budget and everything, it's falling in line. We'll probably be ahead of the curve. The state will probably make every city adopt some type of policy like this.
Okay, that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Goodell.
Would this be okay if it just went to 3 readings? It doesn't need
It's fine.
emergency? Well, then I would like to make a motion to take this to the floor of council.
Okay. Mr. Van Truen.
Second, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I think the question was asked whether this might change our budget. I don't know if it'll actually change our budget. It might change the way the budget looks and the way we do business. I think this limits the city to capital asset purchases of $5,000 or more. Typically, the city might buy some items that accumulate to $5,000. So more items might be in maintenance or line items or repairs, more different line items that we wouldn't necessarily call capital outlay. Right now, our meters, our water meters might cost $200, and if we buy $5,000 or more of them, we would typically use the capital outlay portion of our budget. I think this would change that. It would have to be more fixtures, a line item. And then also I might add a question. He had said the auditor had talked about items that are depreciated and not appreciated, so I just want to have a clear understanding. Number 3, it talks about capital asset types, and I read it as capital assets are divided between assets that are not subject to depreciation and assets that are subject to depreciation. So I think a capital asset can be something like a vehicle that's depreciated over so many years, or so I don't have a complete clear understanding, but I think it actually includes both those type of items. So you might see some, if this gets, when this gets passed, you might see some changes. I might have to come and ask some changes in the budget to different line items. And again, next year it'll probably look a little bit different. Same dollar amount in total, but just in different areas. It's a good policy. I looked it over. I mean, it really is a good thing to adopt. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Cook?
Overall, with some of these items, with 5,000, what the auditors are also encouraging our office to do is to do more of a blanket purchase orders, so that then that way the money, you're putting more into it, so that's how we can get around some of those $5,000 thresholds.
Okay, so you're saying we might have more blanket purchase orders? Is that what you're?
And that's what they're encouraging our office to use, is more of those.
What are the advantages of a blanket purchase order?
The advantage is that you're not having at the end of the year, we have to close out so many all these purchase orders, because, some of them are for like $100 or, $1,000. So a blanket purchase order is like for gas or for oil or things like that, because they're gonna purchase those over a period of time. So they're actually encouraging us to do it yearly, but, with the gas prices fluctuating, we don't wanna do that. So some of them we push back on, but, you can do a 3-month rolling or something like that.
Any other comments? Mr. Dombinski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would this affect how the city divests itself of assets once they've depreciated beyond their useful life, or not really?
I don't think that they would.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, take a voice vote. All those in favor of taking this to the floor of council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried, 6-0. That's all I have, gentlemen. Mr. Winarski.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Goodell. There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned at 7:10.
We got more.
Thank you.
At also 7:10 p.m. Attendance will be carried over from the previous committee. We have one item on the agenda. It is A-17-36, revision of ACO Chapter 913.04 surcharge rates. Mr. Mayor, I believe this was something that you had requested. Would you be willing to speak to it, please?
Thank you. working with our wastewater treatment plant superintendent, Alan Brailer, we were looking through some ordinances. We were looking at all our big users for our wastewater treatment, a big factory that might have a lot of discharges. It costs so much more because their waste and their solids are more parts per million in that water than what a house would produce. So sometimes those become a lot more expensive to treat. And we've had this old rate, I don't remember when that last ordinance was passed, but Alan, it says because that fluctuates so much and our charges that the city pays to treat these things fluctuates, he would much rather have an ordinance that talks about those wastes that are in that water that's being treated based on what it actually costs us, rather than worrying about losing money or, on the other hand, actually charging too much. Because on the other hand, if we're able to do it less expensive, we'd like to pass that on also. So that, in, I guess, as simple terms as I could put it, that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mrinarski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How do we identify the companies? What's the process? Do we take sampling as it's discharged from the
The
company?
wastewater treatment plant does that, and so do we sample as it comes out of their discharges. There's a lot of sampling goes on, and that's monitored quite a bit. Alan usually works with we only have a couple of them right now, but this would be something to get ahead of. So it's monitored quite frequently.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Goodell?
I'd like to make a motion to take this to the floor of council.
Do I have a second? Ms. Wasilic?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. It passes. Mr. Mrinarski?
A motion to adjourn.
Mr. Goodell?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning? Please signify by saying aye. Sorry, thank you. All those opposed? We will adjourn at 7:12 p.m.
Good evening. I'd like to call this ordinance committee meeting to order at 7:15 PM. We will use the previous minutes from the Finance Committee for attendance purposes. We have in front of us two issues on the agenda for this committee, A-17-37 and A-17-38. A-17-37 reads, the authorization approving a contract to create a joint economic development district with Amhest Township. Mr. Mayor, would you like to have any points of discussion about this?
We would. We had the public hearing last week. Most of us were in attendance. This is a great economic tool to work with the township to bring some economic development into our area, and of course to share in some tax revenue. So, unless there's any other additional questions, I'd ask that this be approved. The one step that is before this passes, there has to be a petition to the property owner, which just happens to be the one property owner, the county, and we'll make sure that petition has been circulated and signed by the county before this actually passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Comments from council? Mr. Winarski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This needs to be approved by township also?
Yes.
And when does that go before them?
They're probably working somewhat in parallel with us. At this
Okay.
point, they've had their public hearing, and we've been in some conversation, so I'm assuming, I don't know the date, but I'm assuming we're working in parallel.
That's what I was under the impression. I didn't think they were waiting for us and then they were going to move forward with it. They might even be talking about it tonight, so. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Van Turen?
Is a 100-year span, is that normal for jets?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think it could even go beyond 100 years, but we felt 100 years was appropriate. And I also believe that there's a 50-year.
Two 50-year periods that could be extended.
Anyone else? Thank you. Mr. Domitsky?
Move to take to the floor of council.
We have a motion to take this to the floor of council made by Mr. Dombinsky. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Goodell, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes as well. We'll move on to council with that agenda item. Thank you. We'll now move on to A-17-38. Which reads, we want to add a section to the Amherst codified ordinance pertaining to food and vendor carts and trucks. Mr. Mayor, would you like to start the discussion on this? Or?
I would think. This is an issue that I've thought about over the past few years, but actually just came to a head because for the first time we've had a vendor truck come to the downtown area. There's no regulation in the city of Amherst. At this time, it seems a lot of cities around us have some sorts of regulations. So the legislation in front of you is a very early draft. It's going to take a lot of work on your part to work with the law department and yourselves to come up with an ordinance that'll work for our city. Have worked, my biggest concerns at this point, I think, is the safety of our citizens and the buildings around us. There's a whole lot of issues we might want to talk about, but I've met with our fire chief, and he has talked about, right now the Ohio Fire Code has one little tiny paragraph that regulates food trucks, and most of it's about distances to buildings, combustible items and such. Right now in committee, it's just passed committee with the Ohio Fire Commission. They've got about a 5-page set of regulations that they're hoping to pass in September, and I just want to read you the ending paragraph. It talks about why they want to put more fire regulations on it. It talks about statement of problem. Mobile food operations are a growing industry in Ohio and across the country. With regards to fire safety within the units being used to operate these businesses, very little regulation is in effect. Although there has not been an incident in Ohio, there have been significant incidents in other states resulting in not only extensive property damage, but also loss of life. Due to the nature of the conditions present, including the use of flammable gases and heat sources, basic fire safety regulations are warranted. And it just talks about the need to pass these more stringent regulations in September. So I'd like you to consider the ordinances in front of you, the immediate safety needs of our residents, and good luck with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Wasil?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the proposed wording that we have here, is that consistent with the wording of the Ohio Fire Commission?
No, that kind of regulates all mobile vendors and food vendors. The Ohio Fire Commission solely talks about fire safety, fire protection.
But this is consistent with.
It talks about, even though the paragraph before it refers to Ohio fire codes, which eventually would have more rules in it than it does now. So that does mention following the International Fire Code, rules something, and rules about propane and
So all
liquid
those
gases.
incorporated by reference.
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Other comments? Concerns? Mr. Winarski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. I just, and I beg your indulgence. I may become a little long-winded here, Mr. Janik. I apologize in
No,
advance.
that's fine.
Reel me in if you need to, okay? Welcome to Amherst. We're a small community. Food trucks are an unregulated, or the potential or the existence of food truck is unregulated. Over the years, I've heard of groups coming before, like the building department or visiting the law director or safety service director, asking what our conditions are of working with food trucks in the city. And my understanding, we've repeatedly told them there's nothing preventing you from doing it. We don't specifically grant permission to go ahead and do it, but there's nothing really preventing it. Now, there are things beyond simple, the food truck. I'm just going to call them food trucks. I realize this is a mobile vendor legislation. But if you're creating a situation that's hazardous, traffic, pedestrians on a sidewalk, if you're blocking traffic, that falls into a different area that is regulated under, I believe, our codes. It was nice to see the food truck come up. My daughter was very excited to see it. With that said, I was really hoping it would work out. I do think there's an opportunity for us to coexist, our downtown businesses to coexist. What I've witnessed doesn't let me believe that it can happen without us regulating it. And that's why I appreciate the legislation that's before us. I'm not sure this is the complete legislation. I have a feeling it's going to need to be tweaked significantly because we're learning as we go here. I know more today than I knew a week ago about food trucks, and certainly more than a month ago about food trucks. Part of me says, don't rush this through. But at the same time, I've witnessed issues. I'm looking across the street now, and I see a patio that's full of people. Last Thursday, those people had to go inside because of a gas generator. I understand there was some confusion, and I don't know if the city, well, anyhow, the truck ended up being backwards, and they were serving people on the street side versus the sidewalk side. There was a person that was parked in a parking spot and told that if they didn't move, they'd be ticketed and towed. That's a bald-faced untruth. That situation, the police department did not dedicate certain parking spots. I want this to work, but it's going to need to be regulated, and I'm seeing this not working. I'm going to ask, and I've got some follow-up stuff after this. I'm going to go right to the law director. With the issues we're witnessing, what do you think about a moratorium, be it 90 days while we work through this? Is that an option?
Initially when I hear moratorium, I kind of shy away from the idea of restricting something that's legal. However, if this were, for instance, a broad moratorium on food trucks, I'd say it's probably not a good idea, because where are we prohibiting this activity? The entire city? What about the ice cream truck that's driving through Apple Orchard right now? Or some other type of mobile vending per se? However, That's if you want a broad citywide moratorium. I would caution against that. There's some constitutional rights of individuals to schlep their wares or to conduct business in the city. And when we treat one group differently from another group, there raises some red flags in my mind, constitutional issues. Having said that, the city and local governments have rights to regulate for safety reasons. We have rights to regulate for economic reasons as well, so long as that those regulations are actually tied to some sort of need that the city is expressing. It should be reasonable, it should not be arbitrary. When I say reasonable, citywide moratoriums that doesn't seem too reasonable to me. Moratoriums in proximity to buildings, that may seem reasonable to me because of the possible existence of fires, explosions. If you have someone sitting stationary in front of a building and there happens to be a fire, well, that's not good for not only the person occupying the food truck, but also the people in the building who may have to leave the building. Where do they go? Things like that. And I don't know the answers to. Because I don't know the answers to that, I think there probably should be a moratorium as it exists to proximity to buildings. But a citywide moratorium, I mean, if someone's parked in a location where they're not close to a building, close to doors at a building, I don't see why we should impose that moratorium. Does that make sense?
It does. But I just keep coming back. We've had ice cream trucks in the city since all kids were little. No issues at all. We're witnessing issues here. And not that I want it to go away completely, but we need to figure out how to regulate this.
Right, but then again, we're treating the ice cream vendor a little differently than the other vendor. I mean, what I guess my issue is this: if you have someone with a hot oven on Park Avenue, that's a problem. If you have someone with a hot oven in their mobile unit, say on Tenney Avenue, far away from buildings, that's a little different. And why should we put a moratorium on that area? So, and doing some research on the issue, there's been law review articles written about it. So the city can outright ban this activity altogether. It might be challenged. It has the right to do so. But more and more cities are becoming a little more progressive as to the idea of people trying to make a living and trying to provide services to individuals within our city. From what I hear, that it was well attended. I think people enjoyed the food. The issue in my mind is not the competition, but the issue in my mind would be the safety. And I would advise the mayor and as well as council, perhaps you put a proximity moratorium so we can ferret through what is required and talk to our fire department, our police department to figure out what would be the safety protocols we should be adhering to. But other than that, I don't think you should have a citywide moratorium.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Now I understand. Yeah. Well, with that, I'd like to go then maybe to the safety service director and mayor, just to throw a number out.
There's the Dancing on Main Street has 3-page regulations on food trucks when they come to that festival. And 15 feet seems to be the magic number when I look at other cities' regulations from any combustible item, whether it's another car, an awning, or 15 feet from any building or doorway. I mean, if you wanted to be safe, you could make that number 20 feet till we figure it out. But I would say if you just solely that one regulation, operating within 25 feet or 20 feet of any existing building, any existing other parked car, any telephone pole, anything combustible, might be a good start. I'm looking for direction.
Maybe even, I guess when you say 15 feet, the truck in question was 15 feet from the establishments. What I'm concerned
Why not?
If something happened, if one of those vehicles caught on fire, we have all these awnings on Park Avenue. when I say maybe a proximity moratorium, push it out towards the outer portion of downtown, maybe along Tenney Avenue, away from the buildings until we ferret this through. If you want to talk about it, I mean, I'd like to have some conversation with our fire department about that.
How does, can I ask aloud?
Oh, yeah, please.
How would this work? How would we get this to council, and when would we need to know what those parameters? The fire chief, I'm sure, would be the best to give us those parameters.
Just our typical process. I think we need to have an agenda item put on.
And could we have that before the next, a special one before the next council meeting?
You could have a special committee meeting if you.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, you could do so. But I guess what I don't want to be construed as saying is that, look, what it comes down to is if we push the activity within reason, some cities put a proximity ban or moratorium or ban to the point where you can't even operate a food truck. Is that reasonable? I'm not quite sure. Okay, I'd like to look into that. It seems to be you're doing something indirectly, which you probably can't do directly. So, maybe a designation with the actual legislation, maybe a designation of an area in town within walking distance to the downtown areas to allow this type of activity. It allows for someone who wants to operate a food truck to attempt to have their own business and provide services to the citizens of Amherst who want to partake in their food. But it also protects our brick and mortar establishments, protects the issues of safety. I understand if there was a generator, if it was making noise, that could be problematic. If there was exuding or if it was expelling fumes, that's problematic as well. Those awnings scared the heck out of me on Park Avenue. And if there's oil being splattered, I understood there was some oil that was kind of left the premises of the generator. That's a problem. I mean, there's all kinds of things I think we need to consider. So I would just reemphasize maybe a proximity moratorium. Maybe the safety service director, and before our committee meeting, can find an area that's reasonable within the downtown district that we can have designated for this type of activity until we can ferret this out.
Can we ask for a committee meeting before the next council?
I don't see why you couldn't.
So
As long as you give proper public notice of a committee meeting, I think we're on solid ground.
Mr. Kukuka, did you have?
I don't know if Mr. Marsh is.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of things, but they're very concise at this
Can I
point.
just interject one thing?
Yeah, please.
The city of Cleveland has a very successful.
our real first step.
Yeah, I would agree with the moratorium. I remember the last time that came up, it was involved with chickens and the safety of our residents. And from what I hear, there were residents standing on Park Avenue on one of the evenings in question. And I think that's a safety concern that warrants a moratorium, I think. That,
Right.
at least for this area.
Right, a lot of them were in line to get the food, but that's why I'm saying moratorium, perhaps we also figure out a place for this type of activity to exist at the same time.
Right.
So,
And within that moratorium, you might even allow them to park backwards if necessary because of the way the doors were open. I mean, I want to read one more thing from the fire department before we close. And the part of the fire code that we will be enforcing, whether this moratorium passes or not, I just want to read what the fire department would now be proper.
Sure.
This is a statement from our fire chief, that mobile food trucks fall under the general classification of commercial kitchens. The State Fire Marshal's Office is aware of the popularity of these mobile food trucks and have proposed changes to the fire code, which I talked about earlier, which should happen in the fall. But as far as now, the code only requires that they are 10 feet from any combustible materials such as awnings, wood facades, telephone poles, or egress doors. And the code also requires that they have proper portable extinguishers, and there's all kinds of numbers, what kind of hoods and suppressors, and a fuel shutdown system with the proper carbon monoxide and smoke type detectors. So just forewarning, if these trucks appear anytime in the meantime, the fire department will be coming out to inspect that they're at least following these rules that are in effect by the state fire code.
Thank you,
And they
Mr.
will be bringing their tape measure to make sure they are that 10 feet.
And at this time, if there's no other questions, comments from council, we'll allow any members from the audience to approach the podium, state your name, your address, and your comments, provide your comments.
My name is Paul Byers. I am owner of a corporation that owns a couple buildings down here, one of which is Cork Tree Taverns, Cole's Public House, Giuseppe's Wine Cellar, and our banking hall. Most of you have already gone over all the points that I wanted to go over, so without being too winded, like Mr. Winarski, I will try to make this very quick. Two things I'd like to bring up is I had to go through design and review multiple times and probably will continue to do so. And in that process, talking to numerous businesses down here who have been brought into town, I don't think anybody should be exempt from that fine situation. And so I would like to make that clear. Mrs. Basil, I totally agree with you on dancing in the streets, but we're also talking about a one-day event where the streets are closed off. We're not talking about a day where there's traffic, and we all know how much traffic there is downtown. So, you know, once again, I think that some of it is warranted, but then some of it has to be looked at too. So, investment in the community, not so long ago, our corporation bought foreclosed buildings and rental spaces readily available. So to Mr. Kokora's comments, that particular meeting that I was at, we were asking permission before we did something, not after we did something. And it was quite a lengthy process before we got open, so I would consider that just a little bit different also. I do appreciate the Boy Scouts coming tonight. I was a Boy Scout. I was a people there. So probably kids learned something. You gentlemen learned something tonight. The last time I was here, I was on the steps, so I do welcome that there's not so many people here this time. Brick and mortar buildings pay real estate taxes. You can ask my wife last Friday how much that check was for. Payroll taxes and sales taxes. Our corporation sits at the restaurants, employ approximately 50 people at any given time. Our commercial rentals that we have in this town employ another 35 to 50 people, white collar and blue collar jobs. It's not about competition. Anybody who knows me well enough knows that I not only brought competition into this town. I mean, Daryl and Denise, you know, I leased to Tuccinelli's Pizza. I don't see that we have a big rip there. Also, Chris brought up a great thing is when I got back into the restaurant industry, one of the first people that I called was Larry and Chris, and took a little page out of Willoughby's book where all the downtown owners got together, and I probably told you guys, certain people about this is, everybody was doing steak night on the same night, everybody was doing taco night on the same night, so they got all together and they said, we need to stop this. You know, Chris, you have your specials, Daryl, you have your specials, we have our specials, we're competing for the same pie. So as businesses owners down here, we got together and we said, let's just not step on each other's toes and let's try to, you know, I hope Chris's beer is the best craft brewery in the whole damn town, you know. Mr. Burge, I've known him since I've been a little kid. I wouldn't want anybody else to go get any coffee anywhere else, even though I don't drink it. I would go to his place and buy some. Daryl and Denise have a great time, a great pizza shop, and have been here for a long time. So as far as competition is concerned, I don't consider this I was never, I mean, I came in here not being afraid of competition, and I'm not afraid of much. That's not a threat, but that's water by the wayside. We've also been in discussion with multiple business entities to come into this town. And I'll go ahead and name that, you know, if we can do this, we're going to bring a pharmacy. We've already brought a bakery into town. That'll be here August 15th. We're looking at bringing a jeweler, a high-end jeweler. Hard-packed ice cream, which I know the gentleman that owns Hasty Tasty, and it's a totally different type of ice cream. We're trying to get Mitchell's, so I hope that they might come down. So as far as competition, I welcome competition. But I also welcome it on the same field of what every single person in here had to go through. And if not, they should be regulated just like we are. Last but there are a couple things, noise and emissions that drove my clients off in my patios. I have 2 texts. I'm the bearer of my cell phone numbers, how everybody gets a hold of me. So it's a unnecessary evil because it goes off constantly and I never turn my phone off. So last Thursday night I basically got berated because somebody couldn't drink a glass of wine on the patio and was pretty upset about it. We are regulated on a constant basis in our businesses, building department, fire department, food department, liquor department. I will tell you that after I expressed my opinion, I walked out of this building and decided to do something that I never did before, and I went and talked to every single restaurant owner downtown except for JC from Quesadillas. So I have permission from these people, Ziggy's, Larry Nyhart, Your Deli, I talked to her today, Old Town Pizza, who works here, Brew Kettle, Park Lanes, and Tutinelli's Pizza. Tutinelli's Pizza is owned by a young couple by the name of Crystal and DJ Dunn. I will say this for the record, without them, we wouldn't have a bowling alley down here, and we should be very lucky that we have one. Young couple has devoted a lot of money. I mean, when that building went up for sale, I kept my hands so low that nobody could see me because I don't want to run a bowling alley. So we should be very thankful these people who stuck their neck out and did something to this town that nobody else has. There's not too many towns besides Redmond's that can't see a surviving bowling alley. Very kids oriented and a great place to go. They're not for it. Giuseppe's and my companies, of course, and Mr. Perch from Arabica. If I left somebody out, please excuse me. That, I guess at the end of the day, when I looked at that and I looked at all the people besides myself, because I'm a jumper, I sort of realized that, just like when I came here before, there was a lot of vacant spaces down here, and we're not having that problems now. My baskets of blessings left. I had 7 entities want to either rent or lease or purchase that building. Those are great issues to have. So we have a decision on how we want to conduct ourselves in order to move forward. And that's where I'm at. We can't do that with anybody driving up in front of our places and doing whatever they want to do. There's got to be some regulations on what's going on. I guess on the safety factor, I'm really concerned, not necessarily with the noise, but with the emissions of fumes. If we have hood systems going in our restaurants, if Northern Hazard parks their diesel truck out in front of me and leaves it running, we're going to get diesel fumes inside our buildings. Last but not least, the liability. Something happens with any of those, am I supposed to cover it? So we have a liability issue that, my insurance agents aren't going to be real happy with. That if something happens, we have fire inspections every other year. Some of us have sprinkler systems. We are all tested twice a year. And God forbid, I'm not saying we would never have a fire, but we have systems in place in order to do that. If there's a fire from the outside, what do we do? And if there's damage, who covers it? My tenants all have $500,000 and $1 million policies. Those are all in place. A lot of commercial guys don't make people do that. Right now, with the way things cost, this is a necessary evil. So that, I think, has to be looked at too as far as a liability factor for the businesses or the actual building owners, where this goes not only in the city too. If the city's going to put them on their property, they have liability. If somebody gets sick from the food, and I'm not saying that about your food, Jensen. I'm not saying that at all. But if something happens liability-wise, then who covers it? And I think that's where it just can't be whoever wants to pull up and do whatever they want to do. So, any questions for me? Good.
Thank you, Mr. Byers.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jenso Soto. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm the elephant in the room, in case you're unaware. I own Smash, the world's greatest food truck. I live in Amherst. I grew up in Amherst. I went to Lorraine Catholic, so I apologize, but I am an Amherst guy. Did I say?
Yeah, say your address.
Your address.
Pod, Cherry Valley Drive. Just up the road. I can actually walk.
Thank you.
Not used to too much of the public speaking, but I just wanted to address a couple things. This is a big topic. and I can't believe that I'm the guy that started the conversation. I really can't. Smash has been going on for about 3 years now. I just got the truck this year. I can't believe no one has actually come down to downtown Amherst with these food trucks, as popular as they are. With that being said, last year, in August of last year, I started the process to figure out if a truck can indeed come into Amherst. I didn't come here. I probably should have come here and spoken with you folks. Kind of got it there, but I looked on the websites, I looked at the ordinances, I went to the police department, spoke with with the people there, and there were no rules, there were no regulations. So there wasn't a process for me to come downtown. It was wide open. So I could have come downtown and just parked and then started selling food. That would have lasted 2 days because this would have happened. And then we would have gone through this process. But knowing the chaos that can ensue from something like that, I didn't do that. I'm from here. I know how downtown works. My parents had grocery stores growing up. I've been working since I was 6. It's tough. I know what it's like. I've done it. I've opened a restaurant myself down in Columbus. It's a tough business. I partnered, informally partnered with the business. The plan was there are several bars here that don't have kitchens. And what I wanted to do was get together for a mutually beneficial situation. So I'd spoken with John Colson from the Poorhouse. The point was to have, he's got a great ambiance there. He's got a cool bar. I like the place. The music's awesome. I love the music. I tell everybody that's why I go there, because of the music. And I always told him for a couple of years now, I said, I want my food on your bar because it fits. So that was the idea behind it, was to be a part of downtown. Not to come in and take over downtown, not to come in and sink anybody's business. I respect business too much for that, and I respect how hard people have to work to get business to go. So there's several issues here, and it gets a little confusing because there are a lot of emotions involved, and people have money invested, the families, all that kind of stuff. So just to clarify, I do think trucks should be regulated. The safety issue. We're talking about buildings. In my mind, we've got children that come up to our truck. We've got people. Your kitchens are 50, 100 feet away from people. Your fryers are way back there. There's a lot of distance. We're right there. I've got my family back there. It's important. It has to be regulated. There's a lot of knuckleheads that have trucks out there. It should be regulated. There's a lot of important safety concerns that have to be taken into account. Absolutely, absolutely. I would welcome the fire department to please come in my truck. Make sure that all the fittings are perfect. I'm not a welder. I'm not a plumber. We put those things together. We have people that put those things together. But after I'm driving, vibrations, things can loosen. Please come in. Make sure I'm safe. Make sure my family's safe. Make sure people are safe. We do what's called, just for a little bit of education, we do what's called a drop test on the propane tanks. The fire department comes out and makes sure that if this thing falls, it's not going to explode. That there's no weakness in the tank itself. They make sure that all the connections are tight. We do this through Neff Brothers on 57. Avon actually had just passed an ordinance for food trucks, probably because of me, because I was going over to Railroad Brewing Company, and so they said, well, wait a minute, we need to get something on the books. So we had to go through the Avon Fire Department as well to get that tested. So that's part of the process there. Their fee was $125.
Well, one question on that, Jen. So currently, the fire code regulations that have to be followed by you that are considered of the highest standard of safety, are you following those codes?
Yes, the fire department comes in, they'll check your equipment. It's a kitchen, it's a commercial kitchen, on wheels. So
I have one more question. And I know in September, the state of Ohio is going to be reforming some of these fire codes to make sure things are more safe on state level. Are you going to follow those codes?
absolutely.
So currently, you're working to the highest standard of safety the state of Ohio is telling you to.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, because not only you have to, but you want to.
Correct.
I mean, this is, again, your buildings might be in danger, but my life is in danger. You know, I'm back there, you know, that's, yeah, I'm the guy in there. So, just a couple things. Yes, it should be regulated. Yes, I can imagine that, you know, there's, I'm a regular guy. I'm from here. I know the type of people that we have in this town. I can imagine that a carnival truck just pulls up downtown and just starts, you know, going nuts, and it's a little garish, right? It can detract from what we have here, the downtown, the ambiance. There are some issues. The generator is loud. It's real loud. I tried not to turn that thing on out of respect for your patio wall. It didn't occur to me about the other side. I forgot that there was people there. I didn't turn that thing. I waited until it got dark before I turned that thing on, or at least it was getting to the point where it was so hot that I had to turn it on. Didn't even occur to me about the other side. So I apologize for that. We did have some oil that popped loose on the generator. The vibration, again, it shot out. My dad was out there at 6 in the morning, cleaned it. Not that that's the point, but we took care of it. And again, this is, I know it's not about me, it's about other trucks, about just opening the place up to, you know, just everybody. But I just want you to know where I'm coming from. I'm the guy that started this conversation, and this is who I am, and this is the way I do things. I don't just willy-nilly, you know, go about doing what I please. I try to comply as best I can. I would love to continue to work with John. I would love to be a part of the city. I would love to see Smash happen here, go further to a brick and mortar, or to where, you know, I can't, you know, don't quote me on this, but until I can actually pay taxes here, you know, and put that kind of investment into this town. I have to start somewhere, you know, it's just me, and I'm trying to build something, so.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, so you have?
Mr. Goodell, you have a question?
Well, I just have a comment. I'd like to thank you for coming down here, and now that we know who the elephant is, it's nice. And I think what I'm hearing from the restaurant owners and yourself is I think there might have just been some miscommunication on what was going on. I don't think anybody here wants to prevent any businesses from coming, especially you being from Amherst. I like that. That's good. However, I think it sounds to me like it's the way you did it that there was the issue. I did get a phone call from one of the owners, and to me it sounded like it was almost a spiteful type. You're going to put your truck there and do that, and I don't think that's what you intended, but I think that's how it appeared. And I think if we can all work together, and I think we can make this work. I like the idea of having a day to do it. I also like the idea of having an area to do it. So, I mean, if your intention was to come down here for the certain bars that don't have kitchens, maybe we can set something up for you're in that area and it won't impact any of these other businesses. But I do thank you for coming down. I like the fact that we can have a civil conversation about this and get some things resolved. But I think if you're going to bring your trucks down here, I don't want to sound like the parent here, but maybe we should be a little more respectful of where we're putting it, and obviously we want you here for your business, but I mean, just let's use a little common sense and some courtesy with down here, and I think we'll be just fine. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Goodell. Mr. Kukuka?
Yeah, you were down here twice.
Yes.
Did the fire department check your equipment on those 2 times?
Not the Amherst Fire Department.
Mr. Mayor?
And I don't know what your plans are. If you plan on coming back maybe this week, I'm thinking maybe Thursday, maybe you and Mr. Colson could come to City Hall. Before then, we could work with the fire chief until this moratorium or until this law is passed. Maybe we can find a spot that follows this one little tiny paragraph of the fire code, and maybe we can protect our buildings the best we can. Until then, I mean, that's a suggestion. Would appreciate if you would do that.
Absolutely. I don't think, and again, I apologize if it seemed like I just landed like a bomb out of nowhere. It didn't occur to me that, you know, I was dealing with John's situation with his business, and so I didn't, you know, I try to be conscientious. I'm polite. One thing I am is polite. So I apologize if that seems like that, like, you know,
And just, just to be flat out honest, you might not like the location we come up with, but we'll be as fair as absolutely possible to work with the safety service director, myself, and fire chief to find you a spot to operate until something else is passed.
I would like to say one point, because I can appreciate all the feedback here, and just on behalf of the food trucks, I have opened a business before, and I've worked in business. I understand the capital that goes into it and all those things. A lot of people do think that because it's a truck, that there are no expenses going into this. It's just, for instance, if for that truck to go somewhere, on a Friday or Saturday, right now I work full time. I work at City Hall in Lorraine. So for me to take that on the weekends, just Fridays and Saturdays, to go somewhere. Starting out, I did it. Somebody said, "Hey, I've got a garage sale. Will you bring your truck?" Yeah, I'm going to take it. Let's do this. It takes a while for me to learn. Finally, I know I have to at least, it's about $1,000 for me to take this truck, that I have to know that that's what I'm going to make that night for me to take this truck. The costs that are involved, the labor that's involved. Right now I don't have employees because it's me, my 75-year-old father, my sister. We don't have the capital. If you were to sit down and look at my books and measure success by the economics of profit and loss, it's a loss. It's absolutely a loss. It's a success to me in the sense that there's a name and that I can take this thing out every day. So just to the point of maybe a day or Walnut Wednesdays, I think that's a great idea, but there's also the fact that, one day a month, for a truck to operate, there's only 12 weekends or 12 days really in the summer that you have a season. I can't operate in January or February. So I have 3 months to try to make a year's worth of finances. So I appreciate why we would come up with something like that as far as a day, but the ability for me to operate one day a month that's a very expensive hobby at that point. So it's just something to consider from my side of the table. Or any other truck. It's not as inexpensive as it looks. There are some.
Do you operate in any other cities?
I have, mainly right now I do Rockin' on the River in Lorraine, Fridays and Saturdays because it was close. But I have done, again, it's hard, you can't say no once you start going. So I've done Avon, I've gone into Cleveland a couple times. The cities, they're in the same boat. This is a new frontier. Nobody really knows how to manage this. So you expect these things, and it has to happen. There has to be regulations. But you'd be amazed that these trucks can go anywhere and park and do their business and leave. So yeah, that's a big concern for a community. Is somebody coming from the outside just making $800, $1,000 that night and taking that could have gone to the businesses and then leaving and going to another area. I understand that absolutely.
Mr. Pecora, if we put a moratorium in place this evening, would they still be able to work with him on Thursday? Or?
We're not interested in doing this evening. We should probably give public notice of an agenda item on a committee night.
Okay.
That follow the normal processes.
I think what we ought to do is table this until we get more information from the mayor and the service director, and we'll call a special meeting and get more input from council, get some more input from your constituents, and talk to some of your neighbors, see what they feel about food trucks. I mean, we need more than just one side. We need 2 sides or 3 sides or whatever we can come up with. So, but I think you ought to table this until we get more information, and we'll call a special meeting when law director and the mayor and safety service director get together with the fire department and so forth. And so.
I didn't want to hog the mic out.
No, yeah, we have another speaker, a couple more. Want to get up?
Also, I'm not really good at standing up here and talking either, but my name's Darryl McCarty. My address is 807 Lincoln Street, Amherst. And we have, with my wife, Denise McCarty, we have Old Town Pizza and we have Dairy Mart. I guess talking about him, I actually know him, I know his family. I've known him for 20 years, nice family. But I have a problem with it as he's talking about it cost him, $1,000 just to come out. Dairy Mart, just to open my door every day, I have to do $1,300 just to open the doors. Anything after that, then my profit starts. Old Town, between the two businesses, we have 40 workers, or somewhere, 36 to 40 workers, sometimes 42. So we have to do that when there's a day that's total snow. I gotta suck that up more and do it. Plus I pay for plowing, water. So I think, competition is good, but it's gotta be on the same level. He can walk in and then drive out. I mean, and then you're wanting to look at his truck, so if we have one, everyone kind of build that. And if we have 7 or 8 trucks, once we open the door, I've worked, my wife worked, most of us have worked really hard to make this town what it is, the downtown. I mean, not just my pizza shop. I mean, I work on a lot of different committees, as a lot of you guys do, to make, I think we have 100% occupancy now in downtown. And so that's when it gets exciting that people want to come down here more. And I think because we work hard now, people come in. If they do want to come in and you're going to sit with or he's going to meet with the fire department, maybe there should be fees for that every time. Why should the city they don't just come to my place and they come in maybe 2 or 3 times a year? If they have to check these guys out, there should be a fee every time. I mean, I'm paying all my taxes all the time. I mean, I have to make a certain amount of money. When I don't on those snow days, you see me out there shoveling my own driveways, my own sidewalks. Why does he do that? I get people say, why are you busting tables? Why are you shoveling? I'm making a living. If I just sit back, sit in my office, it's not going to happen. I wouldn't be as successful as I am. So I have to be out there working hard in order to make a living. I don't think the playing field is fair. Competition, I understand what you say about competition. Competition is good. He had to do brick and mortar, so did other people. But for just them to come in, it makes me have to make a better pizza. I understand that. We've always tried to keep the highest quality. But, I mean, just the rules that I have to do for the city, they should have rules too. That's all. They shouldn't be able to just come in automatically and do it. They should have rules and have to pay for it. The city shouldn't have to do things for them and then not have to pay for it. If the fire department has to come out, there should be a fee. Make the playing field way more fair. It's not fair at all. They can take, I know he lives in the town, but they're not paying anything. And we have to. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Mr. Pecora, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to again address my commentary about the competition was not to say that we shouldn't do anything to protect our brick and mortar establishments. We certainly should, and we can. And I guess my point was there's a balance, and we need to take into consideration our.
If you do one, you're going to have 7.
No, well, my point, what I was going to say is when you mentioned that, the Supreme Court case I mentioned, the New Orleans versus Dukes, New Orleans decided it was just going to be 2 vendors for the entire area in the city of size of New Orleans. The Supreme Court said that's fine. You could do that. You could do it in an entire band if you want. We could say that there's going to be 2 licenses or 1 license per year. We don't have to your point, when you mentioned it, I raised my interest. You don't have to
put a quantity or a limit on the amount of licenses that can be issued.
That's my point. You can limit it to one vendor. You are allowed to do so. It's economic regulations, and so long as you're not discriminating on the big things, race, religion, etc. Cities have an interest in economic regulations and economic prosperity and protection of the brick and mortar places, and we should all be in favor of that. However, maybe you ought to consider an off-site, an area where we can permit something like this, and you can limit it to 1 or 2 trucks per year. Okay, so.
Good point. Thank you. Other comment?
My name is John Colson, and my address is 482 Boulevard Circle. It's right here in Amherst. I own the poorhouse and property in the building. Also own Vaughn Interiors, the building that Vaughn Interiors is in, and all of that property also. So, you know, everyone here say, I work hard. Well, you know, I heard a lot of names brought up today, but my business has been here 10 years. We bought that business for next to nothing. It's worth over $500,000 now. Now, it might not be worth as much as yours, or yours, or yours, but I'm really proud of that. I've worked hard. I've worked hard too. No one's brought my name up. Worked very hard. See, I call Genso. Genso and I talked about this Sunday. I actually booked him to be in front of my bar. Because I don't serve food. And on my Thursdays, when all you guys' restaurants are busy, mine's empty. Empty. So I have to look outside the box. I have to try to find something to do to bring people in. I have to try to be creative, look for fun things to do. Luckily, I have a great friend named Genso, who might I add is a resident. He's going to pay Amherst City taxes this year with his truck. And he's worked hard and invested, which he didn't say up here, almost everything he has in order to build that truck. You're talking about a guy who's going to other cities to make money, and he's getting flat from his own, so he can't. I don't know what's more unfair than that. I just don't get it. You know, I've tripled my sales on Thursdays. Tripled. I pay taxes on those sales. Genso's doing a good job. I believe in him. You know, I found something that worked. Something that people loved to come out for. We brought in a couple hundred, 200, 300, maybe even 400 people into downtown that were just interested in this. You know what? They're going to grab a taco, maybe drink a quick beer, and guess what? Boom, there they go out around town. They're coming down for it. It's interesting. It's neat. We've complied with the law. You know, we've asked everything that the police department's asked us to do, we've done. We've done. We're trying. We don't want to break the law. We don't want to be unfair. We don't want to interrupt your patio, Paul. We're going to work really hard to make sure that that doesn't happen. I promise. You know, I don't want to impede on anyone. I really don't. What I want to do is find some things that are going to be fun, interesting, and cool for people to come out to my business. And that has worked. So you talk about, well, hurt my business here or chase my business there. It's great for mine. It's great for mine. What about the businesses that it will help? And in these moratoriums and these, you know, set it in a different area. Well, that defeats the whole purpose for me. You know, I'm working close with him so I can improve my business. You know, and we talk about safety. I'm all about safety too. I want it all to be safe. But as far as the standards of safety goes, he's already complying with the highest standards of safety that are put in place right now. Now, if they change those standards, and I was told maybe in September they're supposed to change them, then we'll follow those too. You know, it's okay not to like something. I get it. It's okay, but we don't have to be malicious towards each other. You know, you don't have to. It's easy to fear the unknown. The generator could catch on fire. Well, yeah, you know what? Well, an employee can stick their hand in a deep fryer too. I mean, as long as we're following the codes in place to a T, and let the fire department come out and check, let people check on it. What's not safe about it? To the codes in place, it's all safe. There's nothing unsafe about it. You know, you might not like it. I get it. You know, there's a lot. I don't like tomatoes on my cheeseburger, so I don't put them on. You don't like the food truck, don't go. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. No. But this has been good for my business. You know, people loved it. People responded. I'm sure everyone has read threads in social media, you know, in public forum. 98% of people are just all for it. And there's some that aren't. That's okay. That's okay. I guess that's all I have to say. And, you know, I just hope you all consider, you know, what I'm trying to do to help my business too. I worked hard. I don't have what some of the other people, I'm working on it. You know, I'm working on it. I can't afford to put in a $35, $40, $50, $60,000 kitchen. Maybe if I can keep doing stuff like this, I can afford to do that one day. In the meantime, me and Jensen are going to partner up, and as young businessmen, we're going to try to make it happen. And we'll do anything that you guys need. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Colson. From what I understand, the safety issue that was involved were people standing out in the streets, and then the parking spaces were unaccounted for in terms of in front of the buildings.
I mean, I can speak to that issue directly. You know, I had called, I just want to let you guys know, he just didn't pull up, I invited him there. I called the police department, I asked them if I could use the 2 spaces in front of my building specifically for a food truck and vending sales.
Can we ask who you spoke to?
Officer Jacob Perez. He said, there's nothing I can really do to stop you. He said,
That's different than asking for permission.
well, I asked him, does the police department mind if I use the 2 spots in front of my building for a food truck? They said, we don't see a problem.
Which are public spaces, is that correct, Mayor?
Correct, there's
Those are
absolutely
public
no law
parking
against it at
spaces.
this
So
point.
the owners of the building
Yeah,
don't own those parking spaces.
He said, go ahead, you know, go ahead, put some cones out there, whatever. So we have a problem. The truck isn't, the food trucks aren't made to be on the left side of the road and open up the window because of the way traffic is. So we backed the truck up down the street so it was facing the opposite way. So Park Avenue goes this way, the truck was facing this way, in a parking spot in front of my establishment, but facing this way. So they said, well, that's against the law. You cannot park the opposite way on a one-way street. It's against the law. And I said, okay, we'll turn the truck around. I said, but the window's going to be facing out. I said, is there a problem if people are walking up to that window and purchasing food? They said, as long as everybody's safe. I mean, there's really no regulation on it, as long as everybody's safe. So then there ended up some people in the street, and the police came, and he said, there's people in the street, we have to shut this down or move the truck or something. I said, no, not a problem. I said, you don't want people in the street? I'll make sure people don't go in the street. Put some cones over so people can't go. And we started taking orders from the driver's side window, you know, of the truck. And that's what we did. So we've been working with the police department to comply as best as possible to keep people safe. You know, our problem would be solved if we could just have the truck parked the opposite way, have the window open. There'd be no pedestrian safety issues with that, but I guess we'd have to have permission to do that. You know, help keep people off the street and keeps things safe. I mean, what are your thoughts, Mr. Pecora? I mean, is there some way is there a way that the city can get permission to park the opposite way on the street?
I'd have to talk to the chief of police about that.
Yeah.
I imagine that sometime in the past we've allowed people to do it, or maybe they just did it anyway. But it's right now it's against the law. I'd have to talk to the chief.
And we understand that. You know, we understand that. But as far as people being in the street and stuff like this, the reason it was like that is because, well, we didn't want it that way, but they made us turn the truck around. And then when they said, nope, there's people in the street, we said, no problem, we'll take care of that. And we took orders from a driver's side window of the truck, which is really not ideal, but for continuing business purposes, that's just what we did.
I guess, Mr. Pecora, the mayor, did you have a point to make too as well?
I was just saying there was, you know, he stated he didn't break any laws, but there were quite a few violations that night. You know, going the wrong way on a one-way street, parking the wrong way, obstacles of the street, the flashing blue and white lights. I mean, there truly are a ton of things that were against city ordinance that we somewhat overlooked just because it's really not clear. And the biggest violation was probably the pedestrians in the street.
Right.
But it wasn't the business that was in violation, it was actually the customers that were there unknowingly breaking the law. So we tried to make a situation as safe as possible. And like I said earlier, if they want to come to the city hall, talk to us, we'll do the best we can to find a location suitable till some legislation's passed.
Go ahead, Mr. Colson.
I have one more thing. In consideration of a suitable location, is my business going to be considered in that? Because the point of working in conjunction with each other was, well, to help both of our businesses, not just a singular one. And I think that's why we're both sitting here next to each other fighting for this.
I'm assuming with the safety service director, the police chief, fire chief, we can all find a way without breaking any laws, in front of that establishment till we pass some legislation, we might be able to do that. No guarantees, we will look at it as part of the equation. But we won't allow any of the laws that we have to be in violation.
Okay, so my plan is, we're already marketing, we're doing this again on Thursday. So before Thursday, we should come in. What is a good time for you, sir?
We'll make time for you.
Okay. Maybe I'll give your office a call in the morning or something like that.
That'd be perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colson. Now, Mr. Pecora, I mean, so am I correct in, if we don't put a moratorium in, then Thursday's activities can happen as long as an agreement is made between...
It might be the first and might be the last time, but yeah, I mean, until city council properly hears the request for a moratorium, which won't happen until next week. I guess
Right.
the answer would be that if something can be worked out, it can be worked out.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
Can I say one?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Chris Russo, 300 Church Street, Amherst. I own the brew kettle over here, hot dog heaven. I think a lot of the points were already, tossed around, and I'm just going to recap a few of them. But first, thank you for taking on this hard issue. I know it's not something that comes along all the time. So to your point, I don't think this issue has anything to do with you personally, your truck, or you trying to make a living, or any of that stuff. The issue is the food trucks. For myself, I own a food truck, and I own brick and mortar. For myself, there's always a time and place for a food truck to work. To your point where, you come out one day a week, there's opportunities 7 days a week all over the place if you want to take that opportunity instead of coming down here. Parking spaces, we just talked about parking spaces. The mayor asked, our business to have our employees park far away because there's not enough parking for all the customers. If you have one truck or two trucks, three trucks, where does it stop? I like your idea about having a limit. You talk about fair competition. Truly, it is fair competition. The one thing Paul didn't mention, that Thursday, his special were tacos. He's serving tacos outside his door. It's not fair competition at some point. Safety, again, we have insurance. There were issues with your truck, I understand. Not that you meant to have issues, but there's issues. We don't know your insurance. Whose liability is that if something happens? Main Street, we talked about Main Street earlier. Paul's right, we close down the street, you have extra police, you have extra fire on hand in case anything happens. That's a special event. That is when a food truck kind of makes sense, for a special event planned out to bring more people to the area. Not to, and don't take this the wrong way, again, I own a food truck, be a leech off of what everyone else is doing in the area. That's truly what a food truck is to some degree. They're leeching off of the customers that we're bringing down to the area or to cannibalize what's going on. I think that's really it. I think everyone hit all the different points about finding a place, finding a time, limiting it. That all makes sense. Finding regulations to make food trucks safe. That's a big deal. Again, I have a patio over there. If somebody's out front of us and the generator's spilling oil or smelling, that's going to be an issue. You talked about 100 feet from any building or any restaurant. Again, there's restaurants all over here. I'm not sure we're a safe distance away that wouldn't compete with everybody. That makes sense. That's a decision for you guys to make. But truly, I think this is a good discussion. Thank you for your time, and see what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Mr. Van Turen.
I would move unless there's any objection from the administration to table this legislation.
Okay, Mr. Van Turen has motioned that we table this. Mrs. Wassell?
Second.
Are there any comments? Further comments? Seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of tabling this motion at this time, signify by saying aye. Aye. Chair votes aye as well. At this point, then, do we need to call another special meeting?
I'll leave it to the mayor's office and Mr. Dietrich's office to put an agenda request on in the proper manner.
Okay.
I'd say count on it, and then we'll do the proper announcing.
We'll wait till we get the information.
Very good. All right. Seeing no other issues for the ordinance committee, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Dembinski? Thank you. And second, Mr. Winarski?
So moved.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:36. Thank you.